Elevated is a moving target, right? The bar keeps rising.
Yeah.
And we're talking about the same thing here, which is progression. Welcome to the Menlo Experience. I'm your host, Brad Sant, here with Kyle Bach. And episode 4 already. Is that surprising to you?
You know, it feels like it's no, I don't think it's surprising at all. It's just fun. I've been enjoying this. Our conversations.
Yeah. Who knows where they're going to go? We just start talking and don't stop. So,
well, we talk a lot behind closed doors anyways.
Right.
That's kind of what led to this whole conversation. And so, we just talk a lot.
Yeah.
I have been accused by all of my kids of talking too much.
No, that's not true.
Yep. Maybe my wife also. But she says she loves that about me also. So she might be lying. I don't know.
Well, I'll let you two sort that one out.
That's right.
But,
we'll talk it out later.
I think the podcast has been great because as events happen over, the week or, couple weeks prior, it gives me thoughts of things to talk about. And recently here for us, it's how do you deal with the unexpected? How do you deal with things that just kind of come out of left field and you weren't planning on? So, obviously you were part of some of those events here recently, but, how do you deal with that?
Well, Brad, I'm a Boy Scout. I don't know if I've told you that yet.
Be prepared.
Be prepared, the motto of the Boy Scout. I can sing the song if we want to.
No,
be prepared, the motto of a Boy Scout. So that's how the song goes. But I am a planner. I love to plan, and think ahead and plan in advance. I had a trip to San Antonio last week, and I checked the weather in advance because I was curious whether I was going to need to. What shoes to wear, and I was curious whether I needed an umbrella. Of course, I'm probably the only person on the trip that took an umbrella because the day we were supposed to walk all around the city, it was just supposed to be pouring rain, which is like the one day out of 90 days in San Antonio that it's raining, right? And so I like to be prepared, but you can't prepare for everything. And both in life and in business, and you can't prepare for anything. Especially things that are outside of your control, things that, that can pop up. And so as much as I love to plan, you can't plan for everything. You can contingency plan, and we were just talking about contingency plans, but, when things go awry, it tests you and your flexibility. And so when unexpected things happen, in your world, what's your first gut reaction? How do you respond?
Oh, totally threw my arms up, hair on fire, running around screaming. Yeah, exactly. I've
seen you do that a couple of times.
Yeah. That's the way I like to roll.
Yeah.
But really, I get hyper focused. That's my response to it when things go unexpected and I start problem solving. But I think you hit the nail on the head, which is if you haven't thought through some contingencies, you're going to probably be caught off guard. So for me, no matter what I'm going into, if I'm a part of it initially, I'm trying to think of whatever contingencies we need to work around, drill for those or plan for those as part of the plan. I think a lot of people go in to maybe a project or an activity and their only thought process is everything's going perfect, and they don't allow for extra time or extra resources or whatever. So to me, I'm always trying to contingency plan, where are our threats, right? And in the process or whatever it may be.
Why do you think we forget to have contingency plan as a part of our planning process?
I don't think, I think people become hyper-focused on the outcome and the steps, maybe the specific steps, but they're not looking at the big picture of what all the inputs of that process are, what are the potential, again, threats that I mentioned. I think it's just a hyper-focused activity, and my natural approach is just to look at things at a 50,000-foot view first, and you can see that. So I think you got to step out of that planning process, almost like an out-of-body experience, take a look at it. Either that or go to a colleague, go to a friend in life and say, hey, here's what I'm looking at doing. Tell me where you think this could go wrong.
Yeah.
Right. And, get people with other experience involved and have somebody take a look at it.
This is a good thought as far as having an outside party. Sometimes you're so close to the situation that you can't see what could possibly go wrong, especially if you're a planner and you're really, that's your world. You don't oftentimes see kind of the potential failure points, right? I always like talking about it. I don't know where I heard this term. I've always called it a bus policy, but it's like if somebody got hit by a bus, right? Does somebody else know that? What's your contingency plan to knowledge transfer and things like that? Should have a less morbid picture of that. I don't know, but
it is what it is.
Bus policy. Yeah. We can come up with a different term, but maybe somebody can give us a comment on what to call it. Yep. Yeah, what to call that. But that contingency planning like that, I do think I like the quote that your failure to plan doesn't constitute my emergency, and I think that a lot of times my failure to plan contingencies even results in emergencies. And I think that happens, what we've experienced a couple times, recently is, an unexpected, employee transition, right? We're in a tough market right now and hiring, and it's just at an event with a bunch of business leaders this last week. And that was the constant conversation that was happening all over the place was, staffing challenges and hiring challenges and recruiting challenges. So when those type of changes happen, is somebody ready either internally to come in the ranks, climb up the ranks and take on responsibility, or, are we prepared to, look outward, and what's our, disaster recovery plan, internally, even as an employee. So I think that's huge.
I think, as I'm listening to you kind of talk about this, the other thing popping into my head is not only how do you deal with the unexpected, but when that happens, I feel like sometimes emotional investment gets in the way, and people become so emotionally invested in the outcome that they had in mind or the direction that they had in mind. They struggle to pivot around the unexpected, right?
Yeah.
And so we were talking about this earlier today regarding a project. We were both in a meeting here a few minutes ago, and I brought up the topic of when we go do a project, we're trying to use all our internal resources, but I posed the question of, have we thought about having other outside resources available on standby, right?
Yeah.
And, I don't know if it's emotional investment, but our view on that was so hyper-focused that our only option was to use an internal resource to get something done. There was like an aha moment that happened. And so I think that emotional investment in the planning, and you spend a lot of time, and here's the way we're going to do it, can also create blinders and
you're so focused in on the project you've been planning that, that an outside option, doesn't even come to the table.
Right. And kind of related to this, what somebody told me before that I live by and stop and think every time something bad happens or the unexpected. Maybe it's an unexpected good, right? It could go either way. But particularly
That's
in
a good point. I focused on unexpected.
See, don't be negative all the time. How many times do we have to talk about that?
That might be just current experiences at different situations, but
unexpected can be good, right?
Unexpected can be good.
Some deal you didn't expect to come in and all that. But I think about it on the negative side. Somebody once told me every crisis has an opportunity, right? And so it's really how you look at it. And I've talked about mental frame on this podcast multiple times before. But if you see this crisis, now you can think of, okay, how do we maximize this, or how do we take advantage of, how do we pivot, take what's in front of us and maximize it better. And I think about business or life, and really the people that set themselves apart are good at doing that, good at getting that little extra bump that maybe, whether it's a recession or some unexpected business outcome, supply chain, whatever it may be, that's an opportunity to step back and find the opportunity and how you maximize that. And if you do that well, you'll set yourself ahead of all the competition.
Isn't that interesting that the mindset of how you react to the unexpected, if it's a negative unexpected thing, the mindset of how you react to that, seeing it as an opportunity can totally flip the tables.
It does. It hands down flips the table. And I think people get in panic mode too quickly. Right. I actually, when this happened the other day, I said, hey, it's great to have you as a partner in a business doing this, because we are not freaking out. We're just looking at this from the lens and saying, we got this, no problem. It doesn't mean there's not going to be a setback. It doesn't mean there's not going to have to be some change or whatever the incident may bring.
Right.
But you're 100%. You take that look. You don't panic. And we talked about this with extreme ownership. Stop, look around. And
make a decision.
And so all of these themes that we've been talking about go hand in hand with life and business as these things transpire.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think, that reaction, where do you think that when the reaction is, what we've mentioned, when that's the reaction, right? hair on fire running around when the unexpected happens. Why do you think, is that something just how we are? Is that something that flows out of, where's that come from? Where do you feel like, at least for you, where do you feel like the calmness under pressure like that looks like? Where's that come from?
You grow over time. I think that comes from trials and tribulations and dealing with the unexpected. So to me, I look at that and I think, okay, I've got the confidence to figure it out. I've been through things like this before.
Yeah.
And I believe in myself and the ability to leverage the world around me to solve it, right?
Yeah.
And so I think also I'm a natural problem solver, so that's what my thought process goes to. But the individuals I think that are strong at this have really built confidence over time in themselves. They really have had experience and they do these sorts of things. And I tell you, I had this conversation with somebody the other day, but I can't stand people on social media that talk about how easy it is to go start a business and you just do this and you start making $10,000 a month and all this other stuff. Well, that sounds great till your first problem. That sounds great until Amazon cuts you off as a supplier or whatever it may be, right? It's a bunch of BS. So you got to anybody can do that. I believe that 100%. But who can get through it when it's tough and the bank won't loan you money, or maybe you lost a contract that you weren't expecting that was a big deal, and you have to make really hard decisions. And we talked about being decisive before. Yeah. So that's what builds character, right? We've talked a lot about football and building character and building mental tough,ness. And it's through time and experience and
we have to talk about clearly this last weekend. We were this will come out in a couple weeks, but Kelsey got hurt right when he was playing in the game up in New York, and was it New York or where was he playing?
Oh, it was Vikings.
Thank you. And he gets hurt in the game, and early on, right, and we're all freaking out before halftime, thinking that he might be a long time injured, but he comes out the second half, and Pat, did you see Pat's quote at the end of the night? He made some comment. He's like, man, Travis is a mean man when he gets hurt, and because, you could just see like he came back with a different level of just focus. Right. And, when adversity hit him, it caused him to dial in. And I think that's, it is something that, you learn and you develop over time that, and maybe it's partially that you learn, what, I'm thinking of another song lyric here that, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. You can start. Do you want to sing that this time?
You know me.
I feel like I'm the one that only sings. I feel like one of these days I'm going to get you to break out.
Maybe I'll start flowing on the mic some point. But,
All right. You heard it here.
Yeah.
But
I think, you look at Kelsey, he's a little determined to, get the attention of a girl. So you just step up and get it done when that's the case.
He has some incentives.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I mean,
so when you got determination, you've got something that you got to get this done. You figure it out, right? And you get tough real quick. So I think that always helps.
He's got some determination. That's a good point. He does have some ulterior motives.
But in the business, we're talking about, we got determinations because there's a student or a teacher that's not able to use their technology. Yeah. And our, K-12 ITC is our technology brand that we have for schools. And, that's a real impact. And so we got to get this done for our customer. We've got people that aren't functioning or a network down or whatever it may be. We have to make it work. We can't just, pack it up and go home. And so we can learn from it, fix it the next time. You talked a little bit about after action reviews today in that meeting. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So we were talking about one of the things that we need to improve on is after every one of our implementations, really having, which is when we go into a school and set up the full IT infrastructure and start the partnership with the school. One of the things we need to do a better job at is just really evaluating how we did in that process, what went well, what didn't go well, what we could do differently next time to improve the process and create a more elevated experience for our customers. The after action review is just assessing that each time and evaluating those questions and learning from it and taking that into the next experience. And I just finished reading a book called Success Wins, I believe is the title of it, but it's the Ritz-Carlton CEO and who created the brand as we know it today, which is phenomenal. If you've ever stayed at a Ritz-Carlton, you know that it's just have you stayed at a Ritz-Carlton before?
No.
Never?
Never.
Wait, what?
Never.
That's it. That's it. All right.
This sounds like
I'm getting you a gift card for Ritz-Carlton. That's it.
Yeah.
But Ritz-Carlton is just from the minute you show up on the property to the minute you leave, it is just like, next class. and just next level leadership and experience and elevated experience in a whole different way. And you know, I've only ever stayed at one, so it's not like I've got a ton of experience.
You were living there on the weekend,
but I was living the dream at that moment. And so, but it was you know, incredible experience. But one of the things he talks about in the book is he talks about, you know, people want three things in every business they work with and every product they buy. They want a product that works. But when it doesn't work, because inevitably, even at a Ritz-Carlton, things go wrong, right? And so what he's saying is inevitably when it goes wrong, that people want timeliness and they want someone to care. And so, you know, so those are the three things that all consumers or customers, you know, people you're working with, you know, want. And, you know, as we're working with schools and technology, you know, technology breaks, you know, and so what they want is someone who cares and a timely response to that. And so our after action reviews is part of us, you know, really assessing how are we doing in those areas? You know, do we have a product fix that we need to roll out? Do we have, you know, you take time and, you know, with our dev team and actually roll out, you know, product updates, you know, to our custom software for our teachers. And then you also, you know, that might be a product update. It might be just a timeliness. It might be a support issue. It might be you know, things like that. And so, we might have an employee that needs, you know, some people skills training or things like that, you know, that needs to show more empathy and care and concern. And, you know, we really launched, you know, really revamped our whole customer success department because we started hiring teachers that care, right? And they care about the students. They have the heart and they can relate on that front. And so those after action reviews are incredibly important. We took time today to do an after action review of our entire summer and all of our projects that we took on this summer. And so just vitally important to, you know, to see how we're doing.
Well, I haven't stayed at a Ritz yet. You know, I think when you talk about...
You kind of are Ritz, though. I mean, you know, I feel like that might be...
There's crackers that are Ritz. I mean, that could look different.
No,
okay, well,
that's a different kind of Ritz.
You're just...
Yep.
You got to be specific.
I was thinking putting on the Ritz, you know, that song,
right.
as opposed to... I don't... Music's on the brain today.
Right,
I don't know.
I guess so. But anyway, staying focused here, Brad. We've got... you know, really...
There's a cracker trail, right?
right. You got crumbs everywhere on this podcast. The Ritz theory or in terms of, you know, timely and responsiveness and caring, it's something I think is, in my mind, is really simple, but people lose track of in business all the time. And business is dealing with humans. It doesn't matter what business you have. You're generally in some aspect somewhere dealing with people. And you got to understand people, right? And people want to be cared for and taken care of that timely, you know, quickly and all that sort of stuff. And so understanding that, I think, is important. The irony of that is we're in the world of technology, which a lot of times tech people are not people, right?
Yeah.
We've got some people in the office that say they are, and we're just kind of joking about that. But, you know.
Shout out to whoever said I'm a people person the other day.
Right, exactly.
And when you have to say I'm a people person.
Yeah, probably not. But
you know,
it's okay.
It's okay.
But I think understanding people and to your point, empathy and those sorts of things are critical. And we're in a service industry, so that's why we focus on that a lot, you know.
Yeah.
But talking about after action reviews, I've noticed that those are easy to miss, right? I noticed that people don't get those scheduled and done. Why do you think that is?
Well, you know, we talked about game tape a couple episodes back, and I think that, you know, I really do think that a lot of times watching game tape, after action reviews, you know, it's revealing, right? You know, it can be tough conversations. You know, I've noticed it's easy to talk about it, and, you know, to have after action reviews when the people who we're assessing aren't here anymore, or you know, people that were involved, even the projects today, some of the ones that came up that were maybe first to be spoken about in the meetings were, you know, well, you know, these discovery process were really poor because, you know, so-and-so, like we didn't have, you know, this person in charge of it, who's in charge of it now. Right. And, you know, and it might be true, but it's just easier to talk about when it's not a reflection on how I did. And so I think after action reviews are, watching game tape, it's revealing of how, you know, an admission, that maybe I didn't hit the level of excellence that I want to hit as an individual. And so it's a little vulnerable to, you know, to have those conversations and it's revealing, right? And as a leader, ultimately, all of that flows up to us, right? And so, you know, so ultimately, every after action review means that we didn't do as well as we should have done in leadership and guiding the process, right?
I think it's also, and we've talked about this on a previous episode as well, but it's discipline, right? It's discipline to watch the tape and get better. And that's a cultural thing, and that's something that I'm adamant about. Everything we do, we need to have that discipline to get better. And so discipline builds over time, and it doesn't just happen overnight. But throughout the whole organization, that's a key discipline that we need to have, is taking a look at that game tape and how we get better there. So
why do you think it's so hard for people to do?
I think you hit a little bit of it as reflection is hard. But I think it's also just, you got a lot on the list and it's so easy to move on to the next thing. Right?
Yeah.
And that's where I use the word discipline on this, because
especially when you're growing, right?
Right. And everybody's busy. What's the biggest constraint? Time. Sure. Obviously money flows freely in our organization, so it would never be that. But
that's right.
Time is of the essence in many ways. And so I think it's really easy to just move on to the next thing because that's where your head is at. But stopping, taking a breath, taking the time, it's the same thing as taking a vacation. Everybody knows that if you just take a vacation, stop what you're doing a little bit, you get recharged and you feel good about it. And the time you never thought that you had to take that, you've got more than that made up and new energy or whatever. And it's really the same thing here, which is it's that discipline to take the time, stop, review.
Which is wild, because when you think about what you learn and, the conversations that come out of those after action reviews, I mean, it's the same, same thing could be said about celebrating, right? Celebrating successes as a team.
Or failures. You got to celebrate the failure too.
Yeah. And and so going through those times, and it's easy to just skip over that and to keep kind of going with the day to day and keep going with the, what fires happened this morning, that we're working on and things like that. But, not taking the time to celebrate, not taking the time to do the after action review, which if you take the time to do that, how much more do you learn from that, and how much more are you more efficient that saves you from some of those problems and issues and fires coming up in the future, right?
Right. So I'm going to kind of evolve this conversation a little bit. So you've got all these after action reviews. You're doing better. You're watching your game tape. You're winning. How do you continue to play to win when you've got stuff to lose? And I think about, honestly, as I was watching the Chiefs the first few games of the season, they seem really conservative on their play calling, right?
Yeah.
How do you still be bold and lay that ball out? If you're Patrick Mahomes and you've got great stats and you've really been dominating and no interceptions on the list, how do you be bold and throw that long pass knowing it may be a little bit more risky or whatever, right? I think people start getting this and have something to lose, and then get conservative, I guess you could say.
That's why there's so few of Super Bowl repeat champions, right? Back-to-back champions. It's so elusive for so many teams. Even when you've got the majority of the players coming back, that back-to-back championships like that is so hard to do. I think that's a great question. I think playing to win when you feel like you now have more to lose is tough. It's challenging. I was telling you about K-State. I'm a fan. Went there, have 2 degrees from there, so I have to be a fan because I paid them a lot of money. And but it's once their season started off the season. I love the quarterback, but he came in last year and was just lights out in a couple of games as the backup quarterback coming in when Martinez was hurt, right? And he comes in and I'm arguing for him to play in the bowl game at the end of the year against Alabama, right? He's a huge part of why they won the Big 12 last year, right? But this season so far just seems like he's playing not to lose, as opposed to playing to win. And I think that when you watch game tape and those type of things, and you're playing to win, there's a level of confidence that comes in who you are, and yet when you get it too much in your head. You can get too much in your head and start thinking about, not losing. Refer back to my last episode when we talked about my free throws, right? And I'm in my head as a senior in high school, and I lose the game for the championship church league.
Have you recovered from that?
I haven't. I still struggle to this day.
It's a childhood wound that
right.
you've got.
It's one of my trauma moments.
Maybe we get our company
This is why I don't watch basketball.
That.
That's right. No, I'm kidding. But that's there's somewhat of when you start overthinking things, you can start over-analyzing. And, and I think that it flows out of that sense of security and confidence and trust in who you are. But I also think it flows out of a trust, built within your team and an organization, right? And as a team, we were talking this morning about that it's okay to fail,
Right.
And even as leaders, among our team, right? It's okay to fail. It's okay to make a mistake. Hiding mistakes, not okay, right? But admitting it, like, hey, that's an okay thing. And I think that, as we talk about that, there has to be a baseline trust, in an organization. Patrick Lencioni's 5 dysfunctions of a team, right? That foundation of trust has to be there. And if you want to look up that image, I'll put that in the footer. But that's that trust, fear of conflict, like those type of things have to be there in an organization where, not fear of conflict. It's the opposite of fear of conflict, right? And you have to be able to have that, as a foundation to play to win. Otherwise, you're playing to not lose. And in an organization, I mean, in your experience, what's playing to not lose in an organization, in a business setting? What's playing to not lose?
You got to be bold. You got to take the risks, right? I mean, it's at least a lot of my responsibility on a day-to-day basis is managing and evaluating and taking action on risky decisions, right?
Yeah.
And so the more you have, right, or the bigger the business is or whatever, the more the to loser is, that's more risk, right? And so now you're balancing that with a bigger risk assessment when, you don't have anything, or you're not the starting quarterback, and it may be that you sit on the bench forever. You're going to go shoot your shot, right? You don't have anything to lose, right? The irony of all of this is we talk about confidence, and I'm a huge proponent of confidence, and the way you get that is you build that over time.
Yeah.
The irony here, though, is you've got risk balancing confidence, because the confidence should be there that you've done this, you've gotten better, you've been winning, and you showed yourself.
Yeah.
But then you've got this counter to that, which is risk, right? And so making sure you're staying focused on being confident that you're going to figure it out, that you can do it, you've done it before.
Yeah.
While still evaluating risk, right? I mean, you can't just run stuff into stuff blindly. That'll be a nosedive quickly. But I think the risk gets bigger, and that makes it harder to make those decisions. And you just kind of have to compartmentalize that risk and still be bold and go for it.
Yeah. I think of the quarterback that throws the interception and has to get back out there and do it again, right? It's not that they don't.
His name's Dak Prescott, for the record. So, yeah.
Oh, America's team right there, right? I saw an article this last weekend that was
Kansas
talking
City.
about.
I saw the same
you saw
article.
that?
Yeah.
Yep. Kansas City, America's team.
America's
It's
new team. That's
America's new team. So, but I do think that there's an element of, even in business, how do we, okay, we fumble, how do we get back up and do the same thing, right? It doesn't mean we, don't learn from it, right? So when I say do the same thing, it doesn't mean you don't take the next, attempt.
Yeah. What's the definition of doing that over and over?
Yeah, insanity.
Yeah,
doing the
right.
same thing, expecting a different result, right? Definition of insanity. And so it's not doing the same thing, but how do you, protect the ball better next time, right? How do we learn from it? That's the after action review, right? How do we improve from this? But ultimately, I think that's where, in business, getting okay with, taking the deep shot, right? Like, and I think that's, where we have to get as a team is, it's okay to not, to not complete the pass every time. It's okay to take some of those shots. And I think that even as the business owner, you have learned to balance this confidence and this risk. And I think that the risk for some of our team members, the fear of losing their job, the fear of underperforming, the fear of us, thinking that they don't know what they're doing, right? Is that fear can be really, really strong. How do we as leaders help absolve some of that fear, give some of that confidence? Because I think it's one thing, right, as the owner of the company, and I know you and I were talking the other week, for me, I had somebody ask me if I felt like the imposter syndrome sometimes coming in as a COO. And I said, well, I used to. But now I've done this enough times that I have more confidence in it, and as far as what I'm doing. But how do you feel like we instill that confidence in our team that might still be just developing those muscles, right? I think confidence is a muscle that you develop, right? It's and you were telling me your abs hurt this morning, by the way, which is
I'm working on my goal, man.
Working on that goal.
Yeah.
But how do you develop that muscle with our team? How do you think we we do that.
We're gonna have to start doing a weigh-in on this podcast or something. We'll figure that out.
Yeah,
So,
now we're talking.
okay,
now we're
yeah.
talking.
I
Oh,
mean, we gotta
we're
hit
off
those
track.
goals. All right.
Crackers.
Yeah, crackers, bits,
Ritz.
Bits. The bits. Do you like the Ritz bits or the big ones? Okay.
You know what? Peanut butter Ritz bits.
Okay.
I'm all for those.
I'm gonna
Those
bring
are
it back. I'm gonna bring
delicious.
it back. Okay. You know, I think that comes from transparency in relationships, right? We have to have close relationships, and they have to understand. And it's a culture of being able to fail fast, right? Is something that a lot of people say. But something else that comes to mind that somebody had told me before was, I'd rather tell somebody to slow down than have to tell them to speed up all the time, right? And so that, to me, you know, says you're going to make some mistakes, or we're going to have to, you know, corral you. But what we want in the culture and what we want is people that are pushing, right? And that people are really, really trying, getting out there and trying to figure those things out, or take some risks and know that they're going to fail. We have to be good communicators. We have to have those relationships, and we have to have a culture that shows that's okay. But I think people get in their heads too much about that, and what actually happens is the opposite, which becomes a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy of that they're not taking those risks, they're not being more bold, and then it looks like maybe they're not trying as hard or something like that, you know. So what we need to do is just have a good, healthy balance of that, but allow people to push and make a mistake. I do it all the time. You know, I sit around and I think about, you know, if I make a mistake, there's how many families that don't have a job. You know, certainly the companies, you know, could have trouble, but impacting so many. How many customers are we impacting if we don't? And that's a heavy burden, right? And so that's part of what we carry as leaders, but you got to be able to push through knowing that you have that. You have to be able to push through even more aggressively and saying, I believe, and we're going to take it to the next level. So it's tough. I mean, but everybody has it. It's not one person in the organization as leaders. And you know, I always talk to managers or people that want to become managers, and I ask them why, right? You know, and because you're carrying a whole new set of burdens as a leader that requires more of this, more risk, you know, tolerance or evaluation and pushing on that. So
one of Elon Musk's videos that I know you and I have watched together, but you know, and he's like, when people ask about management, it's like, why do you want to do that? And he's like, ultimately, literally, the worst problems come to you as a result of that. And you know, but I think that, you know, we have an opportunity in our organization. I think we're seeing it in a number of different places where people are really stepping up and stepping into that, you know, responsibility and stepping into those, you know, I had someone come into my office yesterday and show me, you know, some projects that they were taking on their plate that literally no one was taking on, and they just took ownership of this and were, you know, building, trying to figure it out, asking questions, and I was just like, I love this. Just keep going, keep doing this thing. And, you know, and when you see that level of ownership, you know, confidence and not feeling like they, you know, are making the wrong decision here, but trying to figure it out, trying to solve a true problem that we have internally, a need, you know, that we have internally. I feel like that builds those confidence muscles over time, right? And when you go through some of those things that might be scary or might feel like they have that risk, right? Or even when the risk feels like you know, they might not have the correct answer or know all of the, you know, the facts, right? In our world, maybe they're not the most techie person, you know, in the organization, right? But they're trying to solve problems inside the organization. I think it builds that confidence, it builds that trust, you know, and it's, you know, something that we can see built over time.
Yeah, I think this brings us back to the first episode where we talked about the elevated experience. And I made the comment that elevated is a moving target, right? The bar keeps rising.
Yeah.
And we're talking about the same thing here, which is progression. All of these themes tie together, you know, really much the same, which is as individuals, as an organization, as teams, we always need to be progressing.
Yeah.
And the great part about it, you know, I don't know who came into your office doing that, but you have somebody that does that and shows that it builds that progression in the team, because it's like, oh, it was okay, they did it, and you know, it wasn't so scary and it worked out, right? You know, and so this progression, this elevated experience, this is all tying together what we're going after from an organization to push the limit. And we're going to do that better than anybody else. We're already doing it much better than anyone else. And we will never stop. It's not one of those things that ever stops. You always keep building your confidence and your experience and the push to be better.
You know what I also think builds confidence? Just one more thing. I think that celebrating builds confidence. taking some time. We mentioned it briefly earlier, but I think that celebrating really builds that level of confidence, because we've taken some time over the last couple of weeks and taken some of our teams out to dinner just to celebrate the back to school season that we just went through. And for many of our customers that said that, this is the best back to school season they've ever experienced. We wanted to celebrate our teams for that and tell them thank you, for serving our schools and teachers and students. And in the process of that, celebrating them and just saying thank you. And at those dinners, having an opportunity to talk and to, ask questions and things like that. But I feel like even in those times, it almost dropped some walls came down a little bit, and people spoke up, and, I think some community was being built in a way that, that at least we got to, rub shoulders with people and talk in a way that was, I was super encouraged with, and I think that we got to celebrate them, and well-deserved celebration, and we get another one tonight.
Yeah, I'm hungry now that we're talking about this.
Yeah.
But what we're talking about here, this is our push for the elevated experience, right?
Yeah.
This is building the culture. This is building the team. This is building the Super Bowl champion.
Yep.
And really that's what we're after. So, what we're looking forward to here on future episodes is some guests coming up, and so stay tuned for that. If you have some ideas on some guests you'd like to have on a podcast, drop us a line. We're going to unveil some of those here coming up. But for now, this has been the Menlo Experience. I'm your host, Brad Sant, and Kyle Bach.
Have a great day.